What do you think makes bookmakers always certain that they will win? The rules of the game. Right. Tempo. That's true. But in Las Vegas today, there's a sure bet, even more certain than any roulette table. Resort fees and parking fees. Charges you have to pay. Whether you gamble or not. For many years, Las Vegas believed that visitors would accept anything. That the Strip is emotionally exclusive. If you come to Vegas, you have to pay the price. And indeed, during the post-pandemic recovery phase, the maximize revenue per customer strategy helped casino corporations report record profits. Even the customer numbers were not as high as before. But 2026 is revealing the downside of that gamble. Tourists are no longer dissatisfied or disappointed. They are gradually withdrawing, going to Orlando, Mexico, on cruises, or even staying home. For them, Vegas is no longer the city of experience, but the city of bills and financial burdens. When parking fees are empty, when hotels have rooms but no bookings, is Las Vegas going too far in trying to make money from the very people who once sustained it? And if trust is lost, how many more resort fees will be enough to mend it? In today's video, we'll discuss a truth Las Vegas is trying to avoid. The era of resort fees and parking fees, once considered an unadvertised goldmine, is beginning to collapse. There's a very unforgettable Vegas moment, but not the kind of memory people are eager to share with friends after their trip. You make a reservation, you think the price is okay, you've arrived, and then, just when you think you've gotten a good deal on your vacation, that's the sign that tells you the door has a toll booth, resort fee, parking fee, tax, surcharge. The letters were small as ants, but they left a lingering, painful bite. These two fees are like the first two nails hammered into the door of visitors' emotions. You can still get in. But from that moment on, the vacation began to shift from an anticipated experience to a source of anxiety. So what's the final price I have to pay? The most significant change came on June 6, 2016, when MGM began charging for parking at its casinos on the Strip. The initial fees are not at all symbolic. Self-parking is around 8 to 10 USD day, and valet parking is around 13-18 USD. For a city accustomed to free parking as a greeting, it's not just about money. It can also be understood as a message that we no longer welcome you as before. At that time, the reaction from tourists was so strong that MGM had to take a step back. But it seems that setback was just a stepping stone when the resort raised prices again in 2017. In other words, they know people are uncomfortable with this type of cost, but they also knew that people would get used to it eventually. The resort fee is also going down that path. Initially, it was explained as a utility maintenance fee, Wi-Fi, gym, pool, e-newspapers. It sounded like a reasonable contribution. By the post-pandemic stage, when tourism boomed with a revenge travel mentality, that fee even reached $45. A huge price, making the paradox of a $29 room but double the resort fees the new normal. It's not that tourists completely ignore it. They are still uncomfortable, but they are easily appeased. Because of the revenge spending mentality after years of being stuck at home due to COVID. Everyone clicked their tongues, thinking, oh well, as long as I get to go. And perhaps Vegas read that psychology correctly. The problem is, what is accepted once becomes a precedent. Resort fees and parking fees are gradually transforming from purposeful fees into default fees. In 2025, a survey of 90 hotels showed that the average resort fee was approximately USD 40.04 per night before taxes, an 11% increase from the previous year. At the same time, the average room rate on the Strip also reached a post-pandemic record, approximately $204 per night in 2023, up from $182 in 2022, and significantly higher than the $143 in 2019 before COVID. meaning that fees don't just exist, it's living well. And it survives on the simplest thing: tourists have already been there. At this point, the resort fee is no longer a fee for amenities. It became a mandatory part of the room price, whether you used it or not. Parking fees are no longer a solution for managing parking lots. It became a ticket to the Strip, especially for drivers from neighbouring states. And most importantly, the fees appear as a reminder: not welcome, but remember who's calling the shots. Perhaps that excessiveness has reached the point where it is no longer acceptable to tourists. Many people feel pushed out because of an experience that was ambush-like. You know the room price, but you don't really know the total cost until you've driven there, checked in, and accidentally stepped inside. And once a vacation starts with a feeling of being set up, all the subsequent enjoyment is immediately diminished. So, what do you think? Is what bothers you most the specific amount of money, or the feeling of it's already done, so I have to pay? And if a city that thrives on emotion makes visitors enter with a defensive mindset, where will the next domino fall? The answer will be revealed in the next part. When resort fees and parking fees appeared, many people thought they were just an extra charge, a small portion. A pending invoice might be temporarily acceptable. But after a few years, more and more tourists realized the most annoying thing wasn't the money, but rather its meaning. The fee can be money, but in Vegas, tipping seems to have become a way of communicating. In the past, this city said to you, "Come on in." Now he says, "It's open, but pay to get in." Resort fees are the clearest example. It was once presented as a paid add-on utility fee. Initially, the reasons given sounded reasonable: public utility, pandemic recovery fees. But over time, it turned into an obligation, almost unavoidable, no matter how much you press the staff. And when a fee is no longer tied to a service you choose to use, it is no longer a fee in the conventional sense. It became part of the price, only wrapped in another wrapper, to make the number on the advertisement look more appealing. It's like someone selling you a car at an attractive price, and then saying, "Oh, by the way, the wheels and spare parts are extra." Parking fees are the same. On paper, it can be explained as space management, traffic control, parking lot upgrades, preservation, and theft prevention. But in the perception of many people, it's like a ticket to the Strip. And when you have to pay just to park before you've even spent a penny on the show, the bar, the casino, you no longer feel like you're on vacation. You start to feel like you're entering a multi-layered fee system. This is when the reaction shifts from expensive to ambiguous. In economics, this mechanism is called drip pricing. You're lured in with a nice number, and then new fees appear layer by layer at the end. Technically, it's not always illegal, but emotionally, it creates exactly one feeling: being led by the nose or legally pickpocketed. And once trust is questioned, tourists will no longer spend money on impulse. They will spend money cautiously, like a mother managing the family's grocery budget. Interestingly, this story isn't just found in angry traveller reviews. It has entered the policy level. In late 2024, the FTC announced a regulation requiring businesses in the event ticketing and short-term accommodation sectors to disclose the true price, including all mandatory fees, from the very beginning of their advertisements. That regulation will take effect from May 2025. This means the state has also realized this is no longer just a matter of a few difficult customers. This is a matter of transparency. And in Vegas, resort fees are no small matter. Some local news sources report that the resort fee can be as high as approximately $60 per night. If you stay for 3 nights, this alone adds up to the weekly food expenditure of a family of 4. So, If the resort fee and parking fee were disclosed from the beginning as an all-inclusive price, would you still feel ambushed? And if you're Vegas, which path would you choose? Make a few extra dollars per customer right now, or maintain a sense of respect so customers will come back. Because when fees become a language, what visitors hear is not just numbers. They heard the attitude, and that's what made them turn away. There's a truth that many visitors feel very strongly, but not everyone calls by its proper name. Vegas has changed the way it makes money. Not yesterday, not just one night, but it's a long, silent process that's now almost out in the open. In the old days, Vegas operated like a sweet trap. Not a trap in a bad sense. Trap in the sense of charm. The room is cheap so you can stay longer. The buffet is cheap enough for you to stay. Free parking is available for your convenience. Drinks are cheap or free so you feel like you're being treated like a VIP. This city once understood something very classic. To get customers to spend more, you must first make them feel comfortable. But then everything turned around. Now, Vegas operates like a clock that charges. Wherever you go, you hear the sound of tick-tock. The room has a price. Resort fee, parking fee, early check-in fee, convenience fee, this fee, that fee. In the old days, people were drawn into casinos by their emotions. Now, people are pulling in revenue with small, consistent, and almost unavoidable amounts. This change is not random. This is linked to an important reality. The Strip's revenue is increasingly reliant on non-gaming sources, meaning it's not just casinos anymore. According to the Nevada Gaming Abstract for fiscal year 2023, gaming accounted for only about 26.6% of the total revenue of casinos on the Strip. The remainder came from rooms, food and beverage, entertainment, spas, and other services. To put it bluntly, Vegas today makes more money from you staying in the resort than from you sitting at a blackjack table. And when you make money from experiences instead of games, you'll do everything to make the experience a funnel. Once the customer is in, they keep pulling out their wallet. No need to convince. Just design the path correctly. This is the point where the resort fee and parking fee begin to deteriorate most noticeably. Initially, it was an appendix. That seems reasonable. But as the revenue model shifted to maximizing each customer, these two fees became almost mandatory. It's no longer fees for service. It's become the cost of survival in the Vegas experience. And when customers start to feel calculated, they stop spending on impulse. They spend like they're defending themselves. Travel is inherently an open behavior. The fee era turned it into defensive behavior. You no longer see Vegas as a stage. You see it as a growing bill. But the question worth considering is this the only way Vegas can survive in the new era? Or are they sacrificing what makes Vegas special, the feeling of being invited to play, in exchange for safer revenue streams? And if this is just Vegas changing its business model, then the next part will be about who pushed Vegas down this path, and why it feels like a story about the whole of America, not just one city. If the resort fee and parking fee were the first dominoes to fall, what came after that pushed the whole row of dominoes down wasn't greed in a personal sense. It's something colder, something without emotion. That's the logic of public companies and the pressure of Wall Street. Today's Vegas is no longer a playground operating on the instinctual principle of keep the guests happy so they spend more. But it operates like a business that has to answer the question every quarter, where is the growth? And when you're forced to grow steadily, you'll find steady sources of income. Resort fees and parking fees are precisely that kind of revenue, stable, predictable, and almost entirely independent of whether guests win or lose at the gaming tables. From a financial perspective, this is a beautiful move. Fees are definitely money, Fees are money that doesn't need convincing. Once you've entered, you're already in the system. And when revenue needs to increase, fees are the easiest place to raise them, as it causes less immediate reaction than raising public room rates. But Wall Street doesn't just bring growth pressure, it brings a different way of thinking, optimization through data and algorithms. And this is where a dark zone begins to appear, making visitors feel uneasy, not just because of the fees, but because of the feeling of being controlled. A class action lawsuit once alleged that major Las Vegas resorts used a shared pricing software system to coordinate room rates, driving prices higher than naturally competitive levels. AP reports that this lawsuit targets a range of major names such as MGM, Caesars, and Wynn. Although Reuters later updated that the Federal Appeals Court upheld the dismissal of the lawsuit, ruling that simply using the same software provider was not enough to prove an illegal agreement, the story still left something very difficult to erase: the feeling that prices are no longer determined by the natural market, but by a profit-maximizing machine. Where do you think the real problem lies? Is it in the number on the bill, or in the feeling that every step you take is being converted into a metric? And if every company uses the same type of tool to optimize prices, will there still be a Vegas where you can find a real deal? Or will it all just be pre-calculated prices? Because when trust begins to crack, people don't bargain for long. They left. According to a report by the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, LVCVA, in June 2025 alone, the number of visitors to Las Vegas decreased by 11.3% compared to June 2024, which is equivalent to approximately 400,000 fewer visitors in just 1 month. During the same period, the hotel occupancy rate on the Strip decreased from 88.3% to 81.9%. This is not a slight seasonal fluctuation. This is a clear miss in a place that thrives on density. Las Vegas doesn't just sell rooms. Las Vegas sells a sense of hustle and bustle. As the rhythm of life slows down, the whole city loses its warmth. LVCVA explains this with macroeconomic factors: prolonged economic instability, weak consumer confidence, and slower conference activity. That sounds reasonable, but the problem is, if the economy is a headwind, then the fee era is the heavy coat that Vegas is making customers wear extra. With wallets across America already strained by prices, the last thing tourists want is to enter a place where they have to be on guard from the very beginning due to resort fees and parking fees. More notably, Investopedia compiled data showing that in the first half of 2025, the number of visitors to Las Vegas decreased by 7.3%, raising concerns that this trend could reflect a weakening of American consumer spending. The severity is debatable, as there are still peak weeks and major events that draw in visitors. But the main fact remains: the baseline is dropping. And when the foundation is laid, the overall feeling of the city changes. After the pandemic, people were willing to accept higher fees due to a sense of compensation, thinking it was the price of recovery. But when fees become the default, when they repeat like a machine's rhythm, visitors begin to change their behavior. They stayed for fewer days. They reduce spontaneous spending. They choose off-strip. They choose downtown. Or they choose another city. It's not because they not rusty. It's more a chi yemamai. Doin for shiu ginan tavs and mabika for money sorry. And that's because they don't want to go on a vacation where everything is designed to extract more once again. An entertainment city can thrive with fewer guests as long as each guest is still happy and spends heavily. But the problem in Vegas right now seems to be more than just the number of visitors. It's about emotional quality. When tourists approach with a defensive mindset, they are no longer vacationers. They became auditors, and once fun turns into a problem, Vegas loses something that no discount campaign can quickly buy back: trust. So, Did the drop in visitors in 2025 come mainly from the overall economy, or from Vegas having worn down patience with the fee era for too long? And if the numbers start to worsen, what will Vegas do next? Lower fees, increase comps, or fundamentally change how they treat visitors? When a city that lives on crowds begins to thin out, it will do what every system does when it senses danger: change its tune. Vegas is the same. In the years when the fee era exploded, they spoke with the tone of law enforcers. Fees are normal. But as tourism figures began to worsen, that voice suddenly softened. It's not because they naturally feel remorse, but because they clearly see that what they are losing is not just a few customers. They are losing something more important: trust, and the habit of returning. A notable moment was when MGM CEO Bill Hornbuckle had to admit on an earnings call that the company had lost control of the narrative about the value of experience. He mentioned examples that have become symbolic of tourist anger: a 6 bottle of water, a 2 Starbucks coffee at Excalibur, and concluded with a rare corporate statement: shame on us. That wasn't an emotional apology, that was a strategic apology. Because when the CEO says that, it means the backlash has grown large enough to reach the shareholder level. And from then on, Vegas began to try to price correct. Resorts World is a prime example. In 2025, they eliminated self-parking fees and continued to waive resort fees for a promotional period lasting until September 11th, 2025, while their normal resort fee is listed at approximately $50 per night. This is a significant signal. When a mega resort on the Strip has to advertise all resort no fees, it means they are acknowledging that the fee era has become a psychological barrier rather than a harmless source of revenue. But this is the core contradiction. Vegas doesn't truly waste. Vegas is changing how it charges fees. In many places, the resort fee is waived as a loyalty tier benefit, meaning you don't escape the fees as a tourist, you escape as someone within the system. This is the next metamorphosis of the fee era. From a mandatory fee for all, it is transforming into a fee used for stratification. The more you play and the longer you stay, the more you get for free. Those who only want to come and enjoy themselves are even more easily taken advantage of. It sounds very logical from a business perspective, but it's also a kind of unspoken message. Vegas doesn't want you as a guest. Vegas wants you to be a member. And now, the legal element is starting to push the story further. The FTC's unfair or deceptive fees rule, effective May 12, 2025, requires the hospitality industry to disclose the total price, including mandatory fees, from the moment of advertising. This means the fee era is no longer easy to play the game of beautiful prices on the first page, fees on the last page. This is why many places have had to change tactics, reduce fees, bundle services, or temporarily waive fees to create a sense of value returning. But the real question is, will reducing fees fix the feeling of being offended? Or is it just like when someone who used to disappoint you now gives you coupons and says, "This time will be different"? Because Vegas clearly doesn't lack promotions. Vegas just lacks a sense of sincerity. So, what do you think? If Vegas waived resort fees and eliminated parking fees in more places, would you come back? Isn't what you really want not a smaller bill, but the feeling that you're not being drawn into a game where the rules are constantly changing? And if the Strip remains empty, even after the fees are reduced, is that a sign that the problem is no longer about money, but about the soul of the experience? Vegas used to be the place people went to forget about numbers. Now, it's a place where people have to stare at them. Resort fees and parking fees are not just a few extra charges. It's a sign, a new kind of language. You can still come, but you'll have to pay for every step. Maybe Vegas will lower the fees. Maybe they'll comp more. Perhaps they will find a way to retell the value story once again. But the deeper question is, can they buy back what was lost? Trust, and the feeling of being respected. Because ultimately, this isn't just the story of Vegas. This is the story of an era where everything is commodified. When transparency disappears, the experience turns into a negotiation. And when travel turns into defense, fun will die before the wallet. And perhaps the saddest thing, Vegas is still lit up. But sometimes, the light is only enough for people to see clearly that they no longer want to stay. If Vegas completely eliminates resort fees and parking fees, would you go back? Isn't the most boring thing about it not the cost, but the feeling of being treated like a sales target? In your opinion, is Vegas collapsing because of the weakening US economy, or because they pushed the fee era too far, leading to a loss of loyalty? If you find this video helpful in understanding what's happening in Vegas, please like, share, and subscribe to follow our series on the socio-economic investigation of America, the things that are silently changing people's lives. Please subscribe and turn on notifications. This video aims to provide analysis and commentary based on publicly available data, mainstream media sources, and widely documented consumer experiences. Price examples can vary depending on the time of year, promotions, and specific hotels. The content is not aimed at any individual, and viewers are encouraged to verify information directly with the accommodation before booking services.